Let me say how delighted I am to be able to come here and to address all of you on a very important and a burning topic of today, namely good governance, challenges for public relations communications. And as part of this exercise and the 12th Public Relations Conference of the AP chapter, I would like to talk to you briefly on good governance, expectations and realities. First and foremost, I would like to actually call attention to all public relations communicators that today, everywhere in the newspapers, you are finding an expression called governance deficit. Just as you have trust deficit, truth deficit, you have also a governance deficit. So it is very appropriate, therefore, in that context, that we should look at the expectations of the public as well as the realities of the situation regarding governance. I would like to begin by saying the word governance comes from a French word called gouverner. And the meaning of governance is govern, administer or manage, but with the consent of the people concerned. So unless there is an element of consent of the people, then only you say it is governance, otherwise it is administration. So there is a big distinction that has to be made. Also at the same time, governance is considered a higher form of administration or management. It is referred to normally in a ship. There are people who are actually rowing the boat. People who are rowing the boat are looking at the routine functions. But the captain who is actually steering the ship is looking at two things. He is looking at the direction in which you have to go. He is also at the same time looking at the speed with which you are achieving your objective. So you see, this is referred to in governance as, in one hand you have a compass and in the other hand you have a clock. The compass to set the direction, the clock to measure the pace. This is one thing I want you to please keep at the back of your mind. The other thing I want to actually tell you is that governance in any country is dictated to the constitution of that particular country. And in our case, our governance has to be defined in the context of the preamble to the Constitution, which guarantees justice, social, economic and political, assuring the dignity of the individual, the unity of the nation. All these things are part of our preamble. Apart from that, we have the fundamental rights, we have the directive principles of state policy, and we have also the fundamental duties. Unfortunately, in our country, even now, after 60 years, the directive principles of state policy, which says what should be the tone of the governance, has not been fully implemented. This is one fundamental point. The second point is, though the Constitution was promulgated in 1950, only in 1976 were the fundamental duties prescribed under the Constitution. So there was a very long, inexplicable gap that we define the rights and not the duties. So this is another very important point we should actually keep at the back of our mind. And that is why we have to look at governance broadly means the policies, the principles, the systems, the strategies which actually govern relationships between the governor and the governed, also enabling people to mediate their differences and to find solutions. So normally governance is described as, governance function is to either solve problems, dissolve problems or resolve problems. Solve, dissolve or resolve problems. So this is something which I want all practitioners to keep at the back of your mind. Also at the same time, as Mr. C.G.K. Murthy just now told us, there is in India an ancient concept of dharma. Dharma, I want to put it very simply, dharma has two aspects to it. It says, dharmo dharayati ityahu. That means dharma's main purpose is to get people together. And also it means uphold order in society. So two elements of dharma. One is it has to get people together. Also at the same time it has to uphold values, ethics and also uphold order in society. In other words, it has to be self-regulatory if it has to be dharma. So that is why we say dharmo rakshati rakshita, hato va hanti. Dharma, if protected, protects.
If killed, it will kill you. So this is a very important concept that we need to understand. Also at the same time, dharma has another connotation. It says all people involved in governance must ask themselves 4 questions to find the right answers. What are those 4 questions? Any doubt you have, Shruti. Refer to the Vedas, because Vedas is the distilled wisdom of mankind, not by a single author. So it is something like a religious text, but which has been compiled from man's own experiences. So what it says is, Shruti, consult the Shruti or the Veda. If you don't get an answer, consult the Smriti, Itihasa, Purana, Smriti, what is remembered. Third thing is sadachara, what is good practice, what is good custom, what is good usage, and that is why we say ISO standards, all this are actually derived from this concept of sadachara, and then good manufacturing practice. So these are all part of that. Sadachara, and last, if none of them can find an answer, the last thing it says, swasyacha priyam atmanaha. What does the shrill voice of your conscience tells you? That is something which you ought to be actually following. You see how the dharma concept is telling you what are the questions that come, what are the answers that you should seek, and finally you have to decide in terms of your own conscience telling you, because dharma believes that between the heart and the mind provides the logic, heart provides the love with which that job has to be done. This point is very beautifully put by the Greeks also. In the Greeks actually, Socrates said, and he put it very beautifully. He said in any decision that you have to take, there are 3 elements. One is called the logos, the second is called the pathos, the third is called the ethos. So the logos represents the logic that should be applied, the intellect that must go into it. Pathos, the passion with which you will have to do that particular job. Ethos, the ethics and values that must be actually kept in mind when you are doing this. So you just remember simple thing, logos, pathos, ethos. So this is something which is fundamental to governance. And in India, they put it beautifully, is only a simple thing. Satyam vada, dharmam chara, karma kuru. 3 things. Satyam vada, dharmachara, karma kuru. Unfortunately, what is Satyam vada, dharmam chara, and karma nakuru. Don't do. So you see, this is the real problem between the expectations and the reality. You see, I am putting it very bluntly, this is what is the point. And the second thing is, all development, when you say dharayati, when it gets people together, that means it has to be inclusive. So development has to be inclusive. And inclusiveness has 4 attributes to it. The first attribute of inclusiveness is it must create opportunities. America is a land of opportunity. You have to create opportunities. Second, you have to build capacity of the people to utilize the opportunity. There may be an opportunity, but you need someone to grasp that opportunity. So you need to create that capacity. So third thing which is very important is access to that opportunity. You have to provide an access to that opportunity. And the last is security of livelihood. Unless these 4 things are ensured, then only can you say it is an inclusive development. So inclusiveness also has an element of participation. So that is why we say one of these important principles of governance is participatory management. This is a very important point we need to actually look at the back of our mind. And I would like to tell you that I did some study on the dimensions of actually governance. To me, one is, they have got several dimensions. The first dimension, let us take, is political dimension. That means, how do parties actually form governments? How do you conduct elections? Are they fair? Are they free elections? This is a very important thing. Also at the same time, the political executive, how does it function? Do you have democracy? Do you have only guided democracy or goaded democracy? You need to actually look at some of these issues as part of the political dimension of governance. Then we have called the economic dimensions of governance. When we talk of the economic dimensions, it is a question of the business environment that you have created. How have you controlled inflation? What is the rate of growth of the GDP? How does it translate itself into Human Development Index in terms of literacy, in terms of longevity, in terms of living standards? These are all issues that are actually encompassed by the economic consideration. Then we have social. The social dimension refers to the vulnerable sections of society, the minorities, the environmental protection, and the social security that people would expect to get. All this is part of the social dimension. Then we have the legal and the judicial dimension. I think Subhashan Reddy only spoke of the legal dimension, the judicial dimension. But governance is much larger, much larger than that. And that is a question of the law, the rule of law, law and order, and access to justice. These are very elementary issues that we need to comprehend. Also administration, where citizen centricity, is it citizen centric? Recently Modi was talking to the Sri Ram College students, and he was talking of P2, that means pro people, and G2, good governance. So this is the way in which he is also trying to actually give his own interpretation of what according to him is good governance. The other thing is delivery of service. Most important in administration is the delivery of service. So that is why administration sometimes can be static, sometimes can be dynamic. A static administration is form, that means the structure of the organization, hierarchy. Inform, communications that go up and down and laterally, inform. And third is conform. Government believes in form, inform, conform. But governance wants transform, reform, perform. And that perform is what is actually required. So you see how you have to move from a static to a dynamic way of looking at it. And that is where I think you need two things, a high tech and a high touch. Technology provides the high tech, but high tech is the human training and the way in which your mind works. So you see, how do you bring these two things together is one of the essential elements. Also, it has to be participatory, which means decentralization, people's power in people's hands. This is a very important thing. And the more important thing in India is the breakdown of the joint family, and the family, therefore, how it becomes. I want to quote again from Arthashastra. In the Arthashastra, Kautilya says, when Chandragupta Maurya asked Kautilya on one occasion, he asked, what is the strength of my kingdom? Is it the large army I am commanding? Is it the number of forts I have built? Is it the number of palaces I have? Is it the strength of the treasury that I possess? Kautilya said, none of them are your thing. He said, there are only 6 people which are important, all of them centered around the family. And what did he say? Mata Satyam. Truth is my mother. Pita Gnanam. Wisdom is my father. Bhrato Dharma. Brothers and sisters taught me Dharma. Daya Sakha. From friends I learnt what is compassion. Patni Shanti. From my wife I learnt what is peace. Also at the same time, Putra Kshama, I learnt forgiveness from the children. So all these things, Shadate Mamabandavaha. These are the 6 people who are my relations. They are the sustenance of your kingdom. So you see how beautifully he said these concepts are extremely important for an understanding of what is good governance. Also at the same time, there are 5 core principles. The principles are accountability of people in power and position, transparency in your dealings, participation, voice to be heard, inclusiveness. All these are actually very, very big. I'll just give you one simple thing. Truth. What happened to Satyam? The moment they actually abandoned Satyam, the company fell. Trust. Global Trust Bank. They advertised trust is the middle name of the bank. The moment trust was gone, the company went. The bank went. Unit Trust of India. When that trust was there, it was split. Very important. These are, you see, these are actually something which is of an essential nature actually. And the second very important thing is, there are 8 aspects which all modern politicians and modern political scientists believe are essential. And they are: 1. Accountable, transparent, responsive, consensus-oriented, equitable and inclusive, rule of law, equity, efficiency and effectiveness, and participatory. These are the characteristics of a good governance that we should actually have in this. That is why our Center for Good Governance also propounded one thing for the government. The government, they said, must be smart, simple, moral, accountable, responsive, transparent. This is simply, they have put it this way. But that smart has to be combined with another smart for delivery. And that other smart is actually specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Only when you are able to combine these two things, the political smartness with the delivery smartness, then only governance actually is fulfilling its purpose. Otherwise the purpose is not fulfilled. And that takes us to another very important concept of all these things ultimately boil down to the purpose, the process, the people, the product of delivery, and also the productivity. These are the things which again are essential components. Also we need to actually look, when we are considering this one, as to how we can actually increase the productivity, because you have to get more benefits from less resources for more people. That is only when the good governance can really work. So that also implies one more thing, that we have to actually have the 3 essential components. Excel, everyone must excel in his work, exceed the expectations, and expand the personality and the view. So 3 E's have to be combined. Equity, efficiency, and effectiveness has to be achieved. These are very essential things we need to understand. Also, all these things must result in a value creation, a value addition. Unless value is added, governance has no meaning. So how do you add value? There is an ancient Sanskrit sloka which says, Vastu. Vastu means any article, any service. Vastur mulyam. Mulyam means price. Vastur mulyam. Pramanena, the quality it denotes. Pramanena. Samayena, timely delivery. Mitavyayena, at the least cost. Mitavyaye. Sevena, the service that accompanies. Amulyam bhavati. What was mulyam becomes amulyam. The citizen is looking at the price mulyam, but he is assessing that in terms of the value, amulyam. So you see how price to be made priceless requires 4 components to be added. And those 4 components again are the quality of the service, the timeliness of the service, the least cost of the service, and the meaning attached to it of service, with an element and orientation of service. Unless these 4 things are brought together, then only you say it is real good governance. So I want some of these concepts to be cleared, because for public relations experts and communicators, the concept has to be very clear. And we always look at it, conceptual clarity, the concept clarity. So one is concept. The concept works only in a particular context. So you must be careful in what context that concept has to be applied. One is the concept, the context, the content of that policy. The content has a connectivity. And the connectivity also has to be looked at in terms of communication. So unless you link up these things, then only the concept is actually applicable. The same thing again has to be looked at from clarity of your goal. Goal clarity, role clarity, route clarity. Route, which route you will follow? Route clarity, resource clarity, result clarity, reward clarity. You have to have all these things. Only when you have this, you actually can act. So because what I am saying is, when we are looking at something, you must think through it, so that you have to go stage wise. That is a very important thing. And that is why, having told about governance, let me say what is meant by good governance. Good governance to me is, there is a simple word in governance literature, it is called, there is more to governance than governance. There is more to governance than that. More represents the morals, the ethics and values that should be part and parcel of your governance mechanism. You see how that more to this thing. And the Bhagavad Gita beautifully puts it. The Bhagavad Gita says, Pravrittincha, Nivrittincha, Karya Karye, Bhaya Bhaye, Bandham Moksham Chaya Vetti Buddhi Sa Partha Satviki. That means a good person knows what by nature he is doing, what he ought not to do by nature, what is something he has to do, what is something he must desist from doing, what is something he must be afraid of, what is something he need not be afraid of, and what is something where will be binding him and something which will free him. So let him actually understand these things before he takes a decision. This is a very important concept which the Bhagavad Gita beautifully puts it as to what is permissible, what is not permissible, and where do you draw the Lakshmana Rekha. So this is a very important thing that we need to also understand. And all this is predicated on what we prescribe as administrators is a framework. For us, the framework for administration, the policy framework, followed by a legal framework, followed by a regulatory framework, followed by an institutional framework, the institutional framework with a procedural framework, a review mechanism, and a corrective mechanism. So this is the framework in which you have to actually look at the entire gamut of governance. Also at the same time, there are 4 F's. I am just making it very simple. 4 F's, you please remember, you would have done exceedingly well. The 4 F's are, what should be the functions of governance? Who should be the functionaries? How should they be trained? Third, what should be the funds that are required? And fourth, what should be the focus? 4 F's. Functions, functionaries, funds, and focus. So you need to actually look at it from this point. And ultimately, good governance can come only when persons are good. If persons are not good, where is good governance? So you see, the whole thing boils down to, you have a good person, sometimes I have seen, if a good collector is posted in a district, everything seems to be going well. But if the collector is not good, everything seems to be hell. You see, it's a very simple thing, because everything depends on the person, his makeup, his attitude. And that is why for communication people, PR people, creation of awareness, creation of knowledge, creation of attitude, and creation of practice. This is the format in which you will have to actually look at your job. And what it means is that a Prime Minister in the UK said, good governance is make it easy for people to do good and make it difficult for people to do wrong. This is the simple thing. And that is why we say, you have a high risk. See what happened, why is corruption so much widespread? That is low risk, high reward in corruption. But if you make it high risk and low reward, then things will change. So this is where I think we need to actually bring about that mechanism. And there are 6 T's which I would like you to please keep in mind. Truth, trust, transparency, tolerance, tact, and technology. Now technology, for example, after governance also requires e-governance. Now e-governance, for example, railway ticketing has become much better. E-Seva is doing some better work. Things are improving. At least the time element has been reduced. All these things are part of a continuous thing as to how we actually look at some of these things. Now I come to the main portion, expectations. What is the problem with this? 1, more literacy levels, more aspirational levels, higher expectations, increasing population, increasing urbanization and migration of rural properties, and then public participation, the fact that the voice must be heard, service delivery, then public accountability, and equal opportunities, and citizen-centric government. These are all things public is expecting And the media also has pushed up this particular thing. And the social media, whether it's the Arab Spring or whether it is India against corruption, etc., again the social media also has played a very important role. And the reality is falling quality of leadership. Governance expects leadership levels to increase, but unfortunately the leadership level has deteriorated. Very recently, in the government of UK, they appointed what is called the Lord Nolan's Committee. The Lord Nolan Committee tried to examine what should be the qualities for public leaders, and people were advised, you must only vote for that type of people. And what are the qualities they prescribe? First they said selflessness. India we say swartha, selfishness, niswartha, unselfishness, aswartha, selflessness. You see, so one is selflessness, honesty, accountability, integrity, leadership, objectivity, and openness. They said these are the qualities that are required for good governance to be effectively implemented. So our political leaders, unless they have these qualities, it will not be possible to get quick, good administration. Also, in India, we have 4 good points in favor of India. One is our democracy. 2, younger generation more literate than the earlier. So demography. 3, diversity is very good. Nana Bhasha, Nana Vida, Nana Puridan. Bibider Maje Deko Milan Mahan. So this is a very important element. Also at the same diaspora. A large number of people, NRIs, they are able to bring us new technology, they are able to give us new money. This is also something which is a great strength of India. But at the same time we have problems. What are our problems? First is corruption. Second is actually poverty, crime, communalism, and an ineffective government. These are also some of the problems that we are actually facing. And erosion of ethics and values is another important. Therefore, in this context, we need to actually look at, 1, what are the priority problems? Ensuring food security, water security, energy security, also environmental security and livelihood security. Also looking at democratic decentralization, governance reforms, professionalism, and securance of political will, managerial skill, and public goodwill. This is what you are concerned, public relations. 3 things. Political will, how do you mold it? Managerial skill, how do you develop it? And public goodwill, how do you obtain it? So these 3 things, I think, from the purely public relations point of view. And public relations, what is the role? 1, you have to inform, you have to educate, you have to enlighten, and you have to empower. And the best formula I have found for public relations is very simple. If you inform something what you know, and the correct way of inform. If you inform, he feels included. If you inform, he feels included. If you include, he is interested. If he is interested, you can influence him. If you can influence him, you can actually involve him. If you can involve him, you can instruct him. If you can instruct him, you can ignite him. If you can ignite him, you can inspire him. If you can inspire him, you can he will aspire. This is the skill you have to develop actually. Also at the same time, build rapport with all, see actually, all public relationships, retentiveness, and also rapport. This you have to build. And simple thing of communication, accuracy, brevity, clarity, ABC of communication. Accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Simple, lucid, euphonious. And more importantly, all of you must cultivate. I am very fond of telling this to management students, and that is, public relations officials must do their homework, put in hard work, do smart work, have teamwork, and have a network. Homework, hard work, smart work, teamwork, network would require you to be sensitive. Sensitivity is very important, whether it's judicial reporting, reporting on obscenity, blasphemy, elections, corporate social responsibility, an element of objectivity is required. Privacy and public interest, the conflict. Media market advertisements, media laws, string journalism, internet and beyond, control of corporates or the media, because you have to be very careful. It is no longer the legislature, the judiciary and the bureaucracy. Addition to that, now you have got the media, the press, you have got the NGOs, you have got the corporates. And therefore you have got a new concept, state, civil society, and also at the same time the market that has come in, and the media which is exercising a great deal of influence. How do you reconcile these things becomes very important. And lastly, I would like to just say, public relations mean to me the art of social science designed to meet the needs of society by advocacy, communications and behavior change communication, and done in the public interest. That public interest becomes very, very important. And so responsiveness, relationships, retentiveness and rapport, and it is a science of the mind and the art of the heart, and communication between an organization and the publics that has to be done. And in conclusion, let me only say one thing. All of us, God has given to each one of us 4 powerful forces. They are very important. First is Jnana Shakti, the power of your intellect, the power of your thought, the power of your head, the brain, Jnana Shakti. Prana Shakti, the power of your spirit, the power of your breath, the power of your swasa. The first breath a child takes, the child is born. The last breath a man takes, the man is gone. We say dam tod diya. We say dam hai kya. All these things are expression of the spirit. The third thing is called Ichcha Shakti, Hriday. It is inside your heart. It is love, longing, desire. This is Ichcha Shakti. Kriya Shakti, that means getting the job done. So only when there is an alignment of the Jnana, the Prana, the Ichcha and the Kriya Shakti, it will be successful. If there is a mismatch, you run into problems. If there is a mismatch. So you have to correct that particular mismatch. These are called the 4 factors. The 4 factors have 4 actors on the ground. Who are the actors on the ground? Karta, the fellow who has to deliver. Karayita, the manager who has to get it done. Preranascha, the boss who has to provide the motivation. Anumodakascha, the society which must say, Shabash, a good job done. I am very happy to exchange a few thoughts. So I thought I would like to provide clarity on what we meant by good governance, the various dimensions, and that you should be, as public relations managers, aware of the different dimensions and try to see how we can articulate in such a way that the whole country benefits. And for that to benefit, as he said, Ramarajya, that Ramarajya can come only when people actually move from a particular level to a higher level, and that comes when you say from Swahita to Swajanahita to Anyajanahita, Alpajanahita, Bahujanahita, Sarvajanahita. And that is why the ancient Sanskrit thing, even 5,000 years ago it was told, even today it is true. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhagha bhavet. So let no one have even the slightest of thing. And lastly, since this is a meeting of public relations people, I want to tell one thing. 7,000 years ago, in the Takshashila University, similarly when people were asked to go and spread the message, they were told only this thing. They were said, in your determination, Ashma Bhava, be as strong as a rock in your determination, Sankalp. Must be strong as a rock. Ashma Bhava, Parashu Bhava, in your intellect be as sharp as a battle axe. And in the battle of life, whenever the battle axe gets blunted, go back to the hard rock of your determination. Hone it to the same sharpness so that you can fight yet another battle and win the war of life. I wish all of you great success. Great success.